Hi there, welcome to Techtical. Today I'll be doing a Q&A video where... Fuck! Hi there, welcome to Techtical. Today I'll be doing a Q&A video where I give you the detailed answers to your questions. Okay, let's just jump right in. Colin Ria asks, what are your thoughts on the 7990? Worth it or too much for the Crossfire and limited VRAM? Well, I've owned a few 7990s in my day. I paid anywhere from 200 to 250 Canadian for each one, and I was able to sell them for a reasonable profit. Sometimes upwards of 300 and a bit. Certainly not a bad investment. 3 gigabytes of VRAM will still take you quite far, but you'll be wasting a lot of that GPU horsepower. Unless you want to go for something that will just give you absurdly high frame rates and you're not too concerned about things like texture quality. It's not a bad investment, but you always have to consider whether or not buying two R9 280Xs or 7970s would be cheaper. And of course, power requirements are a little bit more demanding, so as is the case with all dual GPU cards, your mileage may vary based on what's available in your market. Next up, random user asks, any tips for covering your ass from bad sales and scammers, etc.? Yeah, lots actually. It's something that I want to go into great detail about in a future video. So here's the problem with personal and monetary safety. To keep yourself safe, you want to meet in neutral locations, well-lit environments with lots of people around. The problem with that is that the less you expose and allow your seller to expose themselves to you, the more likely they are to rip you off. So if you do meet them in a neutral place where you can't test components, where you have no means to track them down should they fuck you, you're opening yourself up to a greater risk. So you have to sort of strike a comfortable balance between the two. I am fully willing to go into people's homes because I'm 6'3", and not all of you are going to be in the same position. And not all of you have close combat training and work in security. So keep yourself safe first. Never put yourself in a dangerous position, but understand that the majority of people are decent and nice people, and they're not intentionally looking to rip you off, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Adam Goodyear asks, why do you build so many machines and buy so much hardware? Do you own a company selling PCs or something? No, I don't. But what I will tell you is that I can open up my spreadsheet right now, and I can tell you that in the last 12 months, I've spent $26,000 or so buying PC components, and I've received back about $34,000 in sales. So if you're generally asking me if I can make a job out of this, the answer is no. The best way to think of this hobby for me is exactly as that, as a hobby, that if I wanted to keep the cash revenue that I generate from it, and just pocket it, it would be a hobby that makes me a little bit of money, which is certainly a fine way to go about things and a good way to look at it. But if you're thinking about quitting your day job to do this, don't, because it's not worth it, believe me. And plus, there's no reason for me to either. It doesn't take up that much time. For the record, though, I don't really pocket any of the cash. All the money, that $8,000 or $9,000 in profit that I've made has gone towards the 3 sources that I've cited before in previous videos, which is improving the channel, buying more stuff that I can review and play with, and charitable donations. They pretty much get split up about a third any way you look at it. And the charitable donations will be everything from giving away gaming PCs to people who couldn't otherwise afford it, or giving like business desktops to an organization I volunteer for. So that's generally how it goes. My personal rig right here that I do the video editing on was made from proceeds from sales, as was the camera, the lighting, these microphones, everything I've got here. Basically didn't cost me anything out of pocket because of my hobby. Anyway, Lucas Peters asks, have you ever done any deals where you had to ship parts and or computers to someone, or have you ever had someone ship parts to you? Well, lots of people do that. There are hardware forums all over the world where people will swap hardware with one another via the US Postal Service or whatever postal service you happen to use in your particular country. It's not necessarily a bad idea, but it certainly cuts into your margins. So if you're looking to build with the purpose of reselling, probably not a good idea. Shipping heavy shit costs a lot, especially here in Canada, so I rarely ever do it. I will buy parts from eBay because there are some companies that have very reasonable shipping rates. If you really need a socket 1155 motherboard and you have everything else just fucking sitting there waiting to go into build, pay the extra $20, get the thing. But other than that, no, I don't do a lot of it. And shipping is a pain in the ass too. I was a very, very prominent e-seller in the early 2000s. I owned a game store for a while, and we bought and sold Magic the Gathering cards and shipped them all over the world. And just making that weekly trip to the post office, as much as we did a lot of good volume and made a nice bit of money while we were doing it, it's just a real pain in the ass to package everything. So probably not worth your time. Andres Andres Alfredo asks, how do you test a used graphics card? Well, I use Unigine Heaven, which is a free and perfectly fine GPU stressing program. It will pump your GPU up to 100% and let it run for as long as you like. It'll give you a good idea of what the thermals will look like, how your fan profile is performing and all that. It does the job, and I would highly recommend it. There are alternatives. Firestrike, of course, is one that is fairly popular. Furmark Donut, I guess, is okay, although there are rumors that have been floating around the internet that it somehow destroys graphics cards. I really don't know how that's true, because all it's doing is just stressing the GPU. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do to it, so I don't really get why that's particularly damaging. I just prefer Unigine Heaven because it's a light program. It installs quickly. There's not a lot of bullshit associated with it. It's not like Firestrike where you have to run like the full benchmark. You can just sort of let it run for an hour and it'll go. Also, testing graphics cards involves a lot more than just stressing the GPU. The GPU is only one element of the card. You certainly want to make sure the fans work, so open up MSI Afterburner, set a custom fan profile that tests the full range of fan functions to make sure there's no excessive rattling or noise and that they operate at the intended speed. You also want to check all of the display outs if possible. So if you've got two DVI, a DisplayPort, and HDMI, which seems to be a pretty popular configuration these days, make sure you've got a cable for each, pop them in, make sure they work. Or at the very least, most of them. I mean, if one of them happens to be dead, it's probably not the end of the world, but still, check them. A random user asks, and I say random user because his username is just a bunch of fucking shit. Do you recycle parts you don't ever end up using? Yes, I do. I'll be right back. I'll show you. Oh, God. Okay. Hi. A little quiet and far away from the mic. This is my box of shit I can't use. Power supply in here I just refuse to employ. It's a 500 watt power supply. It's a little old. It's one of those Cooler Master ones that doesn't actually deliver the rated wattage. I've got a bunch of hard drives, as you've seen in previous videos, that I'm going to be giving away. They're completely dead. Heat sinks, fans that are no good anymore, motherboards that I can't use that have burnt out, including the one that set on fire. All kinds of stuff. Got a keyboard here. This goes in a bin. When the bin gets full, it goes to Free Geek, and I let them play with it. And if they can repair any of it and make use of it, good for them. So that's where all that goes. And I do certainly get a lot of stuff. None of this I really paid anything for, which is good. I don't buy a lot of parts that end up in this bin. But this is just like surplus stuff from teardowns that really didn't cost me anything. It's like when a teardown is put into my spreadsheet as a calculation, I only enter the parts that are worth something. And the remainders go in here, the things that I can't use. So there, that's that. And lastly, we have Colonel Brinkley asks, out of curiosity, how often do you deal with people selling dead parts, either intentionally or unintentionally? Well, this goes back to an earlier question that I already addressed about keeping your money safe and not falling for scam artists and whatnot. I have had arguably 1 to 5 people in the last year try to purposely sell me something that was broken. One occurring last week, but I can't really prove that any of it was intentional. In 4 of the 5 cases that I have in my mind right now, all of them involved motherboards with bent pins in the socket, and that's an easy thing to avoid. You just look with your eyes and know what a straight pin is supposed to look like, and if you see any of them that are bent, you don't buy the motherboard, plain and simple. The gentleman last week that I met, I don't think he did it intentionally. He seemed really nice, and I'm fairly certain he was just either ignorant of it or did it accidentally and just didn't know. There was one person who got away with it, and because I missed a scratched trace on the motherboard when I first glanced it over, and it was a $40 Z68 motherboard that I'm pretty sure I bought broken. I'm pretty sure I didn't cause it. The motherboard was still functional. It just had this weird thing where if you pressed the reset switch, it wouldn't actually reset the computer. It would just, the screen would go blank, and then when you release the reset button, the screen would be there again as if nothing had changed. So it's just a little strange. I think it probably had to do with that scratched trace on the PCB. But no, very rarely do people try intentionally to sell me bad shit. And within the times that they have, I've usually been able to sort of suss it out. And unintentionally, like I said, occasionally it seems as though people have been unaware that their stuff was broken. But no, not a hell of a lot. I would say 98% of people I go to see are honest people who are looking to sell something they just can't use anymore. So anyway, I think that's it. That's all the filming I'm going to do today. It's all the questions I'm going to answer. Hopefully I've got enough footage there to stitch together a video. If not, I'm going to have to film later and piss off my girlfriend some more. She's sitting right back there trying to work. Listen to my stupid bald ass talk. By the way, she made me shave my head. She thinks I look prettier this way. So tell me in the comments if you think that's true and you think she's full of shit or not. The next video is going to be build vlog number 4. I'm fairly certain I'm going to get to filming that motherfucker on the floor down there. So that's coming up next. Follow me on Twitter at OFA. Hit me up on Reddit if you want to ask me some questions. I'm much more responsive there. And I'll see you in the next one.